I think we can all agree that when it comes to skills and abilities, it's the player, not the boots. Meaning that if you're bad, there's no boots you can put on your feet that'll make you not bad. What can't be argued though is that every single football boot offers a different type of fit, feel, and overall performance characteristics based on a variety of different factors, all of which do have an impact on the player wearing the boots, which ultimately does have some kind of an impact on the performance as well, even if it's just a small one. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's a specific pair of football boots that you can buy that will put you at some kind of an unfair advantage in comparison to everybody else. The only way to really do that is with SR4U laces, available at sr4ulaces.com. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to be listing off what I believe to be the top 5 best performing football boots currently on the market. With the criteria for these picks being pretty simple: fit, comfort, touch, weight, and overall traction. When I review a pair of football boots, I'm always thinking to myself, what would I change? And these 5 boots in particular, it's very, very difficult for me to criticize them based on the overall design and how good I think they are. By the way, if you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps want to see more top 5 videos on the channel, please support this one with a like and leave a suggestion for other top 5 ideas down below in the comments. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on future content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. So in no particular order, here are the top 5 best performing football boots of 2019. The Nike Tiempo Legend 7 Elite is quite possibly the best performing leather football boot ever created. The kangaroo leather upper is the draw of this boot, providing the comfort and touch that only leather can provide. You get both of those elements here, but with a ton of modern tech that comes together in the most seamless way possible. The leather does not have any stitching, as you'll notice, but there is some noticeable texturing. That's an internal support cage that adds a ton of structure to the upper without taking away from the softness and flexibility. Something you can't see is the internal fit mesh liner that basically goes from the forefoot into the toe box area that adds further structure without really adding any kind of stiffness. Then you're going to find flywire cables at the top 3 lacing positions that run through the midfoot into the base of the sole, so when you do tie the laces tight, the midfoot is equally as secure as the forefoot area. Then moving on to the heel, you'll notice that it utilizes a Flyknit base to the construction, which isn't as important in terms of overall lockdown, but the overall shape, including the heel liner, is really one of the best low-cut designs of any football boot on the market right now. Then from a weight standpoint, you kind of expect leather boots to be heavy. These are not. The sole plate is slimmed down significantly in comparison to previous Tiempo generations, and the firm ground stud pattern, while not the most aggressive thing in the world, pretty aggressive as far as Tiempo standards go, and they have gone for more mercurial-esque studs at the tip of the toe, giving you plenty of bite when pushing off, giving you, again, more of a speed boot vibe than you might expect from this particular boot. The Puma 119.1, specifically the kangaroo leather upper variation. Now, this is one of those boots that objectively is very difficult to criticize. I will admit that it's not one of my personal favorites to actually play in, but from a performance standpoint, it has pretty much everything going for it. The upper is split up between kangaroo leather here at the front, which you can see in blue on this particular colorway, and a knitted base material along with some fuse running through the midfoot as well as across the top of the foot. This really does create this unique sensation of great comfort and a sock-like feel through the midfoot, with also above average lockdown that you wouldn't necessarily expect, given that there isn't a lot of extra reinforcement elements within the design. And then the kangaroo leather at the front, which is great in regards to fit. It really stretches to the exact shape of your foot. It's also soft and comfortable and provides a great touch on the ball. And I really like the way that they've done the lacing system, where they do give you some extra options here across the top near the basically top 3 lacing positions to give you extra heel lockdown. And lockdown in general, I think, is one of the strongest characteristics of this particular boot, and probably the best of any boot currently on the market if heel lockdown is something that you typically struggle with. From a weight standpoint, the boots are very, very lightweight, being the speed boot offering from the Puma line. The sole plate and stud pattern has nice flexibility to it, but also nice and solid through the midfoot as well. And then the stud pattern, being FGAG, which is always a nice thing to have, is very, very aggressive and legitimately does work well on natural grass as well as artificial grass playing surfaces when it comes to overall traction. The Adidas X18.1, my personal favorite boot from the Adidas brand, and one that for the most part pretty much gets everything right. Obviously, being the speed boot offering, you expect it to be light, and it is. It is one of the lighter options on the market from the big three brands. The upper is a speed mesh material, a mesh-based synthetic that is super soft and really does have this sock-like comfort to it, but at the same time is thin and gives you that barefoot sensation you'd expect from a pair of speed boots. I guess the unique quirk to this particular boot that you might like or dislike, depending on personal preference, is that it's not quite as tight-fitting as a lot of speed boots are, but that, from a comfort standpoint, is something that I personally really like about the boots, and it doesn't take away from the responsiveness, because despite the upper being so soft and flexible, the boots still feel very responsive, and that is partially due to this particular lacing system that is kind of unusual in design in that they're pushed more on the medial side, but it does seem to do a very good job in terms of locking your foot in place once you tie those laces tight. I really like how they did the heel liner on this particular boot. I find the lockdown and overall comfort to be quite good. And then as far as the speed frame is concerned, which is basically just a rebranded sprint frame, it's something Adidas has been doing for a number of years now, and it still works very well in regards to having a solid feel, but also being nice and lightweight. And as far as the FG stud pattern is concerned, this technically being FG AG, it works great on firm natural grass, it works well on artificial grass as well, and as an overall package, again, hard to criticize the X18.1. The made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 2. This is another one of those boots that personally I'm not a huge fan of, but when you break down what Mizuno has done with this boot, they've done pretty much everything right. The upper is a combination of synthetic through the midfoot and heel area, and then a super premium, very, very thin kangaroo leather in the forefoot and toe box, which obviously goes a long way in regards to overall comfort and touch on the ball. But the synthetic through the midfoot also feels quite premium, especially once the boots are broken in, and also makes for a very responsive sensation. From a responsiveness and lockdown standpoint, I really feel like this is probably your best option on the market right now. The overall cut of the boot is more on the narrow side, certainly a very tight fit overall, and because of the way they did the lacing system right down the middle and running very deep into the forefoot, you get plenty of lockdown and tightness around your foot once you tie the laces tight, which I think really is what defines a speed boot. It has to be tight and responsive on your feet, which is exactly what these provide. Heel lockdown is excellent, partially due to the fact that the construction is a little bit more narrow. Obviously, it's a made in Japan Mizuno product, so the build quality and quality of materials is better than anything on this list, I can tell you that. And then as far as the sole plate and stud pattern is concerned, it's obviously very sprint frame-esque in regards to its design. Good flexibility, but nice and solid as well. And then the stud pattern, certainly not very speed boot-esque, but it's kind of a performance quirk of this particular boot. And the traction on firm natural grass, despite looking very traditional, is actually a lot more aggressive than you might expect. Not to mention, it probably has the best insole in the business in regards to keeping your foot from sliding on the base of the sole plate. The Nike Phantom Venom Elite is a perfect example of a boot that does a little bit of everything, and everything that it does extremely well. This is kind of being hyped up as the return of power boots, specifically Nike's own T90 laser line, partially due to the fact that it does have this large striking element, which is a very unique and high quality aspect of this particular boot that we'll talk about in just a second. But the reality is that this is a lot more mercurial and hypervenom than it is old clunky T90. That really was a boot that I personally liked a lot, but they had plenty of flaws at the same time. Now this features a full fly knit upper, the only full knitted upper boot on this particular list you may have noticed, and despite maybe not looking super soft, it's flexible, it's on the thinner side overall, very mercurial-esque in that regard, but I would say a lot more comfortable than a pair of mercurials. From a reinforcement standpoint, while you can't see them, there are flywire cables that pretty much run the entire length of the lacing system, really giving you a nice snug fit across the entire foot. They're tighter than you might expect them to be, and a super locked-in responsive sensation on par with just about everything. I know a lot of people don't care for the lace cover, but it doesn't hurt the performance in any way. And as far as the finish on the upper is concerned, it has this slightly grippy texturing to it that again is more of a performance quirk, but something that I'm personally a big fan of and a super unique aspect of this particular boot. As far as the power precision element is concerned, it's not actually made out of rubber, it's just texturing on the upper with that same grippy finish on it. It really does its part in terms of giving you that very connected kind of pingy sensation when striking the ball, kind of like those old power boots did. So if you are a fan of that, you'll definitely like the Phantom Venom Elite. It has a great heel liner with plenty of lockdown using a synthetic suede. And then as far as the sole plate and stud pattern is concerned, it's solid, it's flexible, it offers very, very aggressive traction. And again, it kind of has everything going for it, not to mention it's also very light. And before you get angry because I left out a boot that you thought would be on this list, here are those boots and why I didn't include them. The current Nike Mercurial, either the Vapor 12 Elite that I have right here or the Superfly 6 Elite, they're basically the same thing. I think that these are excellent boots, and if this was a top 6 list, they'd probably be on it. But the reason why I did not include them is because I think from a fit standpoint, while I find these to be very comfortable, they do kind of miss that original recipe that the Mercurial Vapor and the Mercurial series in general has had for such a long time, and that they've increased the volume, they're a little bit wider. Perhaps going full Flyknit was not the best decision in regards to overall touch on the ball. I think some of the Tajin synthetic uppers we've had in the past were maybe a little bit better, and then from a weight standpoint, they're not as light as past Mercurials. The Adidas Copa 19 Plus is probably the most unique boot out of any current model, but it certainly isn't the best in terms of objective performance. The quality of the leather and the touch on the ball is incredible, but the laceless system does have its flaws in regards to overall quality of fit and certainly responsiveness and lockdown. It's just not on par with anything that has a lacing system, including the Copa 19.1, which also isn't included because I just don't think it's the greatest leather boot ever. It's not particularly light, the traction isn't phenomenal, it has a lot going for it from an experience standpoint, but when it comes to just straight up performance, it's just not there. The Puma Future 19.1. I'm a big fan of these, but I do think that they're a little bit stiffer than they should be. Yes, it's a knitted upper, but it doesn't really have that sock-like sensation that I was hoping for. And the touch on the ball, because of the slight rigidity of this upper, I don't think is as good as it could have been either. I'm a big fan of the sole plate and stud pattern, but technically the new Future is heavier than the past Futures, and for that reason, I don't think it's objectively the best performer. The Adidas Predator 19.1 or 19 Plus, if you prefer the laceless thing, objectively is pretty good. The upper is soft, really giving you that sock-like sensation. The fit is solid, more so with the laced 19.1 than the laceless variation, especially when you're talking about responsiveness and lockdown. But the sole plate and stud pattern is really what holds this boot back, in my opinion. It's a little bit clunky. I feel like the traction isn't that great, and it adds a significant amount of weight to the boot as well. Basically, with the top-end Predators being some of the heaviest top-end boots on offer from the big three brands right now. Not to the point where they're unwearable, but that definitely matters when you're talking about objective performance. The Nike Phantom Vision Elite is another personal favorite for me, and it was very close to making this list, but ultimately I decided that based on what this boot has on offer, a knitted upper with extra grip, a lightweight construction, and aggressive traction, all of those elements are simply done better on the Phantom Venoms. Even though I like the Visions more based on the way that they fit, objectively, the Venom is technically a better boot. As you continue to improve as a footballer and start playing at higher levels, you really come to realize that it's the little details that matter. And I feel like the same logic applies to top-of-the-line football boots. When you're talking about objective performance, it's the little details that really separate one boot from the next. And if you're after ultimately the best objective performance, the 5 boots in this video, in my opinion, are just better than the rest. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, please support it with a like. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Do you have a list of your own? Leave it down below in the comments, as well as any questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you're not subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. All my social media information is linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.